The station floated in the darkness between stars. It was old. Older than human memory. The elder species had built it long before Earth even had electricity. Now it served as the meeting place for the Galactic Council, where the 32 most powerful species gathered to decide the fate of worlds. Admiral. Taiho stood at the entrance of the great chamber and took a deep breath. He was 63 years old, with gray hair cut short and eyes that had seen too many battles. Behind him stood Commander Hannah, his most trusted officer. She was younger, perhaps 40, with a calm face that rarely showed emotion. But Taiho knew her well enough to see the tension in her shoulders. "They will not listen," Hannah said quietly. "They must," Taiho replied. "The Vorak are coming. If the council does not act, billions will die." They walked into the chamber together. The room was massive, shaped like a bowl with rising seats on all sides. Representatives from dozens of species filled those seats. Some had scales, some had fur. Some had no bodies at all, and existed only as light. They all turned to look at the two humans walking toward the center platform. Taiho felt their eyes on him. He felt their judgment. To them, humanity was young, foolish, a species that had discovered faster than light travel only 60 years ago. In galactic terms, Earth was still a baby learning to walk. The High Speaker of the Kaleri sat at the highest point in the chamber. His name was Brel, and he was enormous. His body was covered in blue-gray skin, and he had 4 arms that he folded across his chest as he watched the humans approach. The Kaleri were one of the oldest species in the galaxy. They had been traveling between stars for over 50,000 years. They did not hide their contempt for younger races. "The representative from Earth may speak," Brel announced. His voice echoed through the chamber like thunder. Taiho stepped onto the central platform. A light surrounded him, projecting his image to every corner of the room. He cleared his throat and began. "Honored members of the council," he said, "I come with a warning. Our long-range sensors have detected movement in the outer rim. The Vorak swarm is gathering. Their numbers are greater than anything we have seen before. We estimate over 10,000 vessels." Whispers rippled through the chamber. The Vorak were feared by all. They were not a species that negotiated. They consumed. They destroyed. They moved from system to system, like a plague of insects, stripping worlds of all life and resources. "We request immediate coordination," Taiho continued. "Earth's fleet is ready to fight, but we cannot face the Vorak alone. We need the Council's support. We need ships. We need resources. We need to act now, before it is too late." He finished speaking and waited. The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then High Speaker Brel laughed. It was not a kind laugh. It was the laugh of someone looking at a child who had said something foolish. Soon, others joined him. The Mortaran delegation, with their sharp teeth and red eyes, clicked their jaws in amusement. The Thylan representatives, tall and thin like living shadows, made sounds that might have been laughter in their own language. Taiho felt his face grow hot, but he did not move. He kept his expression calm. "Forgive me," Brel said, though he did not sound sorry at all. "But I find it amusing that the youngest species in this chamber believes it can lecture us about war. Tell me, Admiral, how many battles has Earth fought in the stars? How many enemies have you faced?" "Enough to know the Vorak are dangerous," Taiho replied. "Dangerous to you, perhaps," said Ambassador Koz of the Mortaran. He leaned forward in his seat, his red eyes gleaming. "The Mortaran have been fighting wars since before your species learned to use fire. We do not need advice from children." More laughter. More whispers. Commander Hannah stepped forward. "The Vorak do not care how old your species is," she said. Her voice was steady. "They will kill you the same way they kill everyone else." "Such passion," said Lady Veth of the Thylon. Her voice was soft, almost like music, but there was something cold beneath it. "Perhaps Earth should focus on surviving rather than speaking. We suggest you concentrate on evacuation efforts. Leave the fighting to those who know how." Taiho looked around the chamber. He saw mockery in their eyes. He saw dismissal. These species had lived for thousands of years. They had built empires and conquered worlds, and they could not imagine that a young race like humanity had anything to offer. "Very well," Taiho said quietly. Earth will remember this day. Rel waved one of his four hands in a gesture of dismissal. Remember what you wish. The council has more important matters to discuss. You may leave. Tai-Ho and Hannah walked out of the chamber together. The doors closed behind them with a heavy sound. For a moment, neither of them spoke. What now? Hannah asked. Tai-Ho looked at her. His eyes were hard. Now we show them what humanity is capable of. That night, something strange happened. Every human ship in Coalition space, every warship, every carrier, every supply vessel, every transport vanished. They did not announce their departure. They did not file flight plans. One moment they were there, scattered across 100 systems. The next moment, they were gone. The council did not notice at first. They were too busy celebrating their own importance. But by morning, the reports started coming in. Earth's fleets had disappeared without a trace. High Speaker Brel received the news during his morning meal. He read the report, then set it aside with a laugh. The children have run home, he said to his advisors. I expected nothing less. Let them hide on their little planet. The adults will handle the real work. His advisors laughed with him. They raised their drinks in a toast to the weakness of humanity. Far away. In the darkness between stars, Admiral Tai-Ho stood on the bridge of his flagship. Around him, 47 battle groups waited in perfect silence. Thousands of ships filled the void, their lights extinguished. Their engines cold. Commander Hannah approached him with a datapad. All units are in position, she reported. The council believes we have retreated. Tai-Ho nodded slowly. Good. Let them believe what they wish. When the time comes, they will learn the truth. He looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Vorak were coming. And somewhere out there, the proud elder species were laughing at Earth. They would not be laughing for long. 3 days passed, and the galaxy buzzed with news of humanity's disappearance. On every station and every planet, aliens talked about the cowardice of Earth. The story spread quickly. The young species had asked for help, been refused, and fled back to their homeworld like frightened animals. Ambassador Koss of the Mortaran made sure everyone heard his opinion. He recorded a message and broadcast it across 1,000 systems. In the message, he stood tall, his red eyes bright with amusement. Let this be a lesson, Koss said into the camera. When danger comes, the weak run and hide. Earth has shown its true nature. They are not warriors. They are not allies. They are children who should have stayed in their corner of the galaxy. The Mortaran will remember this cowardice. We all will. The broadcast was watched by billions. On Kalari worlds, people laughed. On Thylan stations, they shook their heads in disappointment. Even species who had been friendly to Earth now wondered if they had made a mistake, but not everyone was laughing. On the Alliance flagship, a vessel called the Eternal Watch, Intelligence Officer Salman sat alone in her small office. She was Calaria young for her species at only 200 years old. Her blue-gray skin was darker than most, and her 4 arms moved quickly across multiple screens as she worked. Salman had a talent for noticing things others missed. It was why she had been assigned to intelligence work. And right now, something was bothering her. She pulled up the communication logs from the past 3 days. Every human ship had gone silent. That much was true. But silent was not the same as dead. When she analyzed the background radiation patterns, she found something strange. There were signals. Thousands of them. They were encrypted in ways she had never seen before, using methods that should have been impossible. This is not retreat, Salman whispered to herself. This is coordination. She tried to report her findings to her superiors, but they dismissed her concerns. High Speaker Brel himself sent a message telling her to focus on real threats, not the movements of cowardly humans. Salman was frustrated, but she kept watching. She kept listening. And she grew more worried with each passing hour. Far from the Alliance flagship, far from any world the elder species controlled, Admiral Tai-Ho stood in the Seoul War Room. It was buried 3 kilometers beneath the mountains of Korea, protected by layers of rock and advanced shielding. No scanner in the galaxy could find it. The room was filled with holographic displays showing the positions of every human ship. They floated in the darkness between stars, in places the elder species considered impossible to reach. These were the dead zones, regions of space where gravity was unstable and normal. Faster-than-light travel did not work, but humanity had spent 60 years preparing for this moment. They had mapped the dead zones. They had found paths through the chaos. And now their entire fleet waited there, visible and ready. Fleet Commander Wu Jin stood beside Taiho, studying the displays. He was a large man with broad shoulders and a face that looked like it had been carved from stone. His family had been military for generations, going back to times when humans still fought each other on a single planet. All 47 battle groups report ready, Wu Jin said. The crews are eager. They did not enjoy being called cowards. They will have their chance to prove otherwise, Taiho replied. The door opened, and Strategic Director Nari walked in. She was small, with short gray hair and eyes that seemed to see everything. Before the war, she had been a professor of mathematics. Now she was the architect of humanity's survival. Vorak have changed course, Nari announced. She waved her hand, and the holographic display shifted. A red swarm of dots moved across the map, changing direction like a school of fish. They are no longer heading for the outer rim. They are heading for Talus Prime. Taiho's eyes widened. Talus Prime was where the Council Station orbited, where the elder species gathered, where High Speaker Brel sat laughing at humanity. How? Wu Jin demanded. The Vorak should not know about the Council's location. They intercepted Alliance communications, Nari explained. The elder species have been arguing over open channels. The Vorak heard everything. They know the Alliance is fractured. They know there is no unified command. They know this is the perfect moment to strike. Taiho was quiet for a long moment. He thought about Brel's mocking laughter. He thought about Ambassador Kaz calling humanity cowards. He thought about all the species who had dismissed. Earth is weak and foolish. Part of him wanted to let them face the Vorak alone. Let them learn the hard way that arrogance was not a defense against destruction. But Taiho was not a cruel man. He thought about the billions of innocent lives on the worlds around Talus Prime. Children who had done nothing wrong. Families who just wanted to survive. They did not deserve to die, because their leaders were fools. How long until the Vorak arrive? He asked. 3 days, Nari replied. And the Alliance fleets? Scattered, disorganized. The Kaleri refused to coordinate with the Mortaran. The Thylon are already retreating to protect their homeworld. By the time the Vorak arrive, there will be no unified defense. Wu Jin slammed his fist on the table. Then they will be slaughtered. Perhaps, Taiho said slowly. Or perhaps this is exactly what we needed. Nari looked at him with understanding in her eyes. You want the Alliance to fail? Not fail, Taiho corrected. I want the Vorak to believe they have already won. I want them to commit everything to this attack. Every ship, every warrior. I want them so confident in their victory that they forget to watch their backs. And then we strike, Wu Jin said. A cold smile crossed his face. Taiho nodded. We will emerge from the dead zones behind them. We will trap them between our fleet and the planet. There will be no escape. Nari pulled up new calculations on her display. Her fingers moved quickly, adjusting positions and timing. It can work, she said finally, but we will need perfect coordination. One mistake, and we lose everything. Then we will not make mistakes, Taiho said. He turned to face his officers. These were the people he trusted most in the universe. They had trained together. They had bled together. They had prepared for this moment for decades. The galaxy thinks humanity is weak, Taiho said. They think we ran away because we were afraid. In 3 days, we will show them the truth. We did not run. We were never afraid. We were waiting. Wu Jin straightened his shoulders. Nari's eyes shone with fierce determination. Send the orders, Taiho commanded. All ships prepare for combat. We move in 72 hours. And in the darkness between stars, humanity's fleets began to wake. The sky above Talus Prime turned dark with ships. They came out of hyperspace like a nightmare made real. 10,000 Vorak vessels, spreading across the stars like a stain of black ink. Their ships were ugly things, twisted metal covered in spines and weapons. They did not look like they were built. They looked like they had grown, like some terrible disease given physical form. On the council station, alarms screamed through every corridor. Kalari officers ran to their battle positions. Mortaran warriors grabbed their weapons and rushed to the hangars. Thylan technicians tried desperately to power up defense systems that had not been used in centuries. Hi, Speaker Brel stood on the command deck watching the Vorak fleet through the massive windows. His forearms hung loose at his sides. His blue-gray face was pale with shock. "How many?" he asked quietly. "Over 10,000 confirmed contacts," an officer replied. "More are still arriving." Brel had lived for 600 years. He had seen wars and disasters and the rise and fall of empires, but he had never seen anything like this. The Vorak swarm filled the entire viewing window, blocking out the stars themselves. "Call the Alliance fleets," Brel commanded. "All ships are to converge on Talos Prime immediately." "Sir, the Mortaran fleet refuses to respond. They say they will not take orders from a Kalari, then contact the Thylan. The Thylan are retreating, sir. They say they must protect their homeworld first." Brel's hands curled into fists. For thousands of years, the elder species had argued and competed and insulted each other. They had been too proud to work together, too arrogant to believe they needed unity. Now, with death itself filling the sky, they were still fighting among themselves. "What about Earth?" Brel asked. The words felt strange in his mouth. The officer checked his console. No response from any human vessel or colony. They appear to have abandoned the region entirely. Brel closed his eyes. He remembered laughing at Admiral Taiho. He remembered the mockery, the jokes, the dismissal. Now, Earth was gone, and the Vorak were here. Everything was falling apart, on a small patrol ship at the edge of the system. Young Officer Yira watched her screens with growing horror. She was Kolari, barely 50 years old, which meant she was practically a child by her species' standards. This was only her third assignment. She had been one of the few who argued against dismissing the humans. She had read reports about Earth's military capabilities. She had studied their tactics, and she had tried to tell her superiors that underestimating humanity was a mistake. No one had listened. They never listened to the young. Now Yura watched the Vorak swarm move toward Talos Prime, and she felt tears running down her face. Her parents lived on a colony nearby. Her childhood friends served on ships that were scrambling to defend the station, and there was nothing she could do to help them. She whispered, though she did not know who she was speaking to. "Someone help us." Aboard the Vorak command vessel, Swarm Leader Thul observed the chaos with cold satisfaction. He was not like the mindless drones that made up most of the swarm. Thul was intelligent, calculating. He had led the Vorak to victory across 100 systems, consuming species that had thought themselves powerful. "The Alliance crumbles," Thul said. His voice was like metal scraping against stone. "They fight among themselves even as we approach. These elder species are weak, soft. They have forgotten what it means to survive." A drone approached him with a report. "The humans have fled the region," the drone reported. "Their ships are not detected anywhere nearby." Thul made a sound that might have been laughter. "The young ones were smart enough to run." "Good. We will consume the elders first. Earth can wait. They will be a pleasant final course after we finish this feast." He gave the order to attack. The Vorak fleet surged forward. Their ships moved in perfect coordination, like a single organism with 10,000 parts. They swarmed toward the Kalari defensive line, overwhelming them with sheer numbers. Kalari warships fired everything they had. Missiles streaked through space. Energy beams cut through the darkness. Vorak vessels exploded by the hundreds. But for every one destroyed, 10 more took its place. The Mortaran finally joined the battle, but they refused to coordinate with the Kalari. Their ships attacked from a different angle, disrupting the defensive formation. Ambassador Kos screamed orders through his communicator, demanding that everyone follow his commands. No one listened. High Speaker Burrell watched his fleet burn. Ships that had protected the Kaleri for centuries were torn apart in minutes. Escape pods launched into the void only to be picked off by Vorak hunters. The screams of dying crews filled every communication channel. "We need reinforcements," Burrell said. His voice was hoarse. "Contact everyone. Anyone. I do not care who they are or what they want in return. Find us help." "There is no one, sir," the officer replied. His hands were shaking. "Everyone is either already here or has abandoned us." The station shuddered as a Vorak vessel crashed into its outer sections. Alarms blared. Warning lights flashed. The smell of smoke began to fill the air. Burrell looked at the destruction around him and finally understood. His pride, his arrogance, his dismissal of the humans and refusal to work with other species, it had all led to this moment. The Kaleri had ruled the galaxy for 50,000 years, and now they would be destroyed because they could not stop looking down on others. "Then, officer," Yara's voice crackled over the emergency channel. She sounded excited, confused, almost afraid to believe what she was seeing. "I speaker." "Sir? I am detecting something strange." "We are being invaded," Burrell replied bitterly. "Nothing could be stranger than this." "No, sir, you do not understand. I am detecting gravity distortions. Thousands of them. They are coming from the dead zones." Burrell's eyes widened. The dead zones were regions of unstable space. No ship could navigate them. No fleet could travel through them. That was what every species believed. That was what every scientist had proven. "That is impossible," Burrell said. "Sir," Yura replied, and now her voice was shaking with something that sounded like hope. "I do not think the humans got the message about what was impossible." And then space itself began to tear open behind the Vorak swarm, and ships started pouring through like an avalanche of steel and fire. They came from the darkness like vengeful ghosts. 40-7 battle groups emerged from the dead zones in perfect formation. Thousands of human warships, carriers, destroyers, and cruisers filled the space behind the Vorak swarm. Their hulls were painted black, making them almost invisible against the void. Only their running lights betrayed their presence, and even those were dim. Admiral Tejo stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Indomitable. Around him, his crew moved with calm efficiency. There was no panic, no confusion. Every person knew their job. Every person had trained for this moment. Tejo opened a channel that broadcast on every frequency. His voice reached every ship in the system, human, Vorak, and Alliance alike. "This is Admiral Tejo of the United Earth Fleet," he said. His voice was calm, steady, absolute. "Earth remembers. Humanity did not abandon its allies. We simply chose the battlefield. All Vorak vessels, you are surrounded. You have one chance to retreat. This is that chance." For a long moment, there was silence. Then Swarm Leader Thul's voice crackled across the channel. "Humans," he said, and there was surprise in his tone. "You were supposed to be hiding on your little planet? No matter, you are few. We are many. We will consume you along with the rest." Tejo smiled coldly. "You are welcome to try." He closed the channel and turned to Commander Hannah. She stood at the tactical station, her fingers hovering over the controls. Her face was calm, but her eyes burned with fierce determination. "All ships," Tejo commanded. "Attack." The human fleet surged forward like a tidal wave of steel. Unlike the chaotic alliance, humanity moved as one. Every ship knew its role. Every captain understood the plan. Decades of preparation had created a military machine unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Weapons Officer Jiho stood at his station on the Indomitable, coordinating the barrage. He was young, barely 30, but his skills with targeting systems were legendary. His hands danced across the controls. "Kinetic batteries firing," Jiho announced. All targets locked. Across the human fleet, hundreds of railguns opened fire simultaneously. Metal slugs accelerated to impossible speeds, tearing through Varrock carriers like paper. Explosions blossomed across the swarm as ships died by the dozens. The Vorak tried to turn to face this new threat, but they were caught between two enemies. The Alliance remnants still fought in front of them. Humanity attacked from behind. There was nowhere to go. In the fighter bays of the carrier Sovereign, pilot Yunbi climbed into her fighter and activated the engines. She was the leader of the 77th Fighter Squadron, known throughout Earth's fleet as the Ghost Wolves. Her pilots were the best of the best. All wolves form up, Yunbi commanded through her helmet radio. Our job is to hit their command nodes. Without coordination, the swarm falls apart. Follow my lead and stay tight. 12 fighters launched from the Sovereign and dove into the chaos of battle. Yunbi led them through a maze of explosions and debris, weaving between dying ships and burning wreckage. Her hands were steady on the controls. Her eyes saw everything. Target acquired, she announced. Command node, 12 degrees port. All wolves attack run. The fighter screamed toward a massive Vorak vessel covered in communication spines. These nodes were how the swarm coordinated its attacks. Destroy enough of them, and the Vorak would lose their greatest advantage. Yunbi's finger tightened on the trigger. Her missiles launched, followed by 11 more from her squadron. The command node tried to evade, but it was too slow. Too large. The missiles struck, and the entire ship vanished in a ball of fire. Node destroyed, Yunbi reported. Moving to secondary target, across the battlefield, the same scene repeated. Human fighters struck command nodes. Human destroyers tore through Vorak formations. Human carriers launched wave after wave of attack craft. The swarm, for the first time in its history, was being systematically dismantled. Swarm leader Thol watched his fleet die with growing horror. This was not supposed to happen. The humans were young, weak. They had run away just days ago. How could they be doing this? All ships, retreat, Thol commanded. Return to hyperspace. We must regroup. But when the Vorak tried to activate their faster-than-light drives, nothing happened. The hyperspace lanes behind them were dead, collapsed, destroyed. Lieutenant Minho stood in the engineering bay of the destroyer Hammer, watching his screens with grim satisfaction. His team had spent months planting gravity bombs along the Vorak escape routes. The moment the human fleet attacked, those bombs had detonated, making hyperspace travel impossible. Retreat routes confirmed collapsed, Minho reported to Admiral Taiho. The Vorak are trapped. Excellent work, Lieutenant Taiho replied. Now finish them. The battle became a slaughter. Without their command nodes, the Vorak swarm lost coordination. Without escape routes, they could not retreat. The elder species watched in stunned amazement as humanity did in hours what the Alliance had failed to do in centuries. High Speaker Brel stood on the damaged command deck of the Council Station, staring at the destruction of the Vorak fleet. Colliery officers around him were silent. Some were crying. Not from sadness, but from relief. From gratitude. From shame. Who are these people? Whispered one of the officers. Brel did not answer. He watched as a group of human fighters protected a damaged colliery cruiser, drawing enemy fire so the alien ship could escape. He watched as human medical vessels moved through the debris, rescuing survivors from Alliance escape pods. He watched as humanity fought and bled and died to save people who had mocked them. Commander. Hannah's voice came over the open channel. Alliance vessels, this is the Indomitable. Fall back to safe positions. We will handle the rest. Your people have suffered enough. Brel felt tears on his face. He had lived for 600 years and had never felt so small. By dawn, on Talus Prime, the battle was over. The Vorak fleet was nothing but ash and debris. Swarm leader Thol's command ship had been the last to fall, surrounded by human vessels that gave no quarter and accepted no surrender. Admiral Taiho looked out at the field of destruction. His fleet had taken losses. Good people had died. But humanity had won. They had proven themselves to a galaxy that had refused to believe in them. Sir, Commander Hannah said quietly, the Council is requesting to speak with you. Aho nodded slowly. Tell them I will be there soon. First, I want to make sure our wounded are cared for. Our people come first. Hannah smiled. Always. And in the silence of space, surrounded by the wreckage of victory, humanity's fleet held formation. Watching, waiting, ready for whatever came next. 1 week after the battle, the Galactic Council assembled once more. The great chamber looked different now. Many seats were empty. The Vorak had killed thousands of delegates and officers during their attack. Entire delegations had been wiped out. The walls still showed scorch marks from fires that had burned through the station's outer sections, but the surviving members of the council had gathered. They sat in their seats, quiet and humble, waiting for the humans to arrive. Admiral Taiho walked into the chamber with Commander Hannah at his side, just as he had 1 week ago. But everything had changed. No one laughed. No one whispered insults. Every eye in the room watched the two humans with a mixture of respect, gratitude, and shame. High Speaker Brel rose from his seat at the top of the chamber. He walked down the long steps toward the central platform, his forearms folded in a gesture that Taiho had never seen before. Hannah leaned close and whispered that it was the Kalari sign of deepest respect, usually reserved for elders and heroes. Brel stopped in front of Taiho. For a long moment, he simply looked at the human admiral. Then he bowed his massive head. "I was wrong," Brel said. His voice echoed through the silent chamber. "We were all wrong. You came to us asking for help against the Vorak, and we laughed at you. We called you children. We dismissed your warnings. And when the enemy arrived, you could have let us burn for our arrogance." "We considered it," Taiho admitted quietly. For about 5 seconds, a few nervous laughs rippled through the chamber. Brel actually smiled. "But you did not," the High Speaker continued. "You came back. You saved us. Billions of our people are alive today because humanity chose mercy over revenge. I have lived for 600 years, and I have never witnessed anything like what your fleet did." Ambassador Koss of the Mortaran remained silent in his seat. He had not spoken since the battle. The Mortaran, who had mocked humanity so loudly now, sat with his head bowed, unable to meet anyone's eyes. Lady Veth of the Thylan rose gracefully from her seat. She glided down to the central platform, her long form swaying like smoke. "I must ask," Veth said. "How did you do it? How did your ships travel through the dead zones?" "Our scientists have studied those regions for millennia. They said navigation was impossible." Taiho looked at Strategic Director Nari, who had entered the chamber behind him. She stepped forward with a slight smile on her face. "Your scientists were wrong," Nari said simply. "The dead zones are not impossible to navigate. They are simply difficult. Humanity spent 60 years mapping every gravity well, every unstable pocket, every dangerous current in those regions. We found paths that others said could not exist." "But why?" Brel asked. "Why would you spend so much time on something everyone believed was impossible?" Taiho answered. "Because we knew that someday someone would underestimate us. Someday we would need an advantage that no one expected. The dead zones gave us that advantage. They let us disappear when we wanted and appear when we chose." Silence filled the chamber as the elder species absorbed this truth. Humanity had not been wasting their 60 years in the stars. They had been preparing, planning, building something that no one else could match. Young. Officer Yura sat in the observer section watching the proceedings. She had been promoted after the battle for her role in first detecting the human fleet. Now she wore a new uniform and a medal on her chest. But she cared more about what she was witnessing than any reward. When the formal proceedings concluded, Yura made her way through the crowd toward Commander Hannah. The human woman noticed her approach and stopped. "I heard you were the first to spot our fleet." "Good eyes," Yura bowed in the human style, which she had practiced. "Commander, may I ask you something?" "Of course, why did you save us?" "After everything the Council said, after all the mockery, why did humanity come back?" Hannah considered the question for a moment. "Because we are not like the elder species," she said finally. "We do not hold grudges against entire civilizations for the words of a few leaders. Your people needed help. We had the ability to help. That was enough." Yura felt tears in her eyes again. My parents live on the colony near Talus Prime. They survived because of your ships. I am glad, Hannah said gently. Take care of them. You're about again, deeper this time. I will never forget what humanity did for us. None of us will. As Ira walked away, Admiral Taiho joined Hannah. He had been watching the exchange. That one will go far, he observed. The young ones always do, Hannah replied. It is the old ones who have trouble changing. The council vote happened that afternoon. For the first time in galactic history, species that had been traveling the stars for less than a century was granted a permanent seat among the elder races. The vote was unanimous. High Speaker Brell made the announcement himself. Let it be recorded that on this day, humanity has earned their place in this council. Not through age, not through tradition, but through courage, sacrifice, and the wisdom to offer mercy to those who did not deserve it. Admiral Taiho accepted the honor with quiet dignity. He did not gloat. He did not remind them of their mockery. He simply thanked the council and promised that Earth would continue to stand with them against any threat. That evening, Taiho stood alone on the observation deck of the station, looking out at the stars. Earth's fleet still held formation nearby, their lights blinking in the darkness. They had not left. They were still watching. Still ready, Commander Hannah found him there an hour later. What are you thinking about? She asked. I am thinking about what comes next, Taiho replied. The Vorak were just one threat. There will be others. The galaxy is vast and full of dangers. It's true, but now we face them together. Taiho nodded slowly. The elder species will need time to change their ways. Their arrogance nearly destroyed them. It will take generations for them to truly see us as equals. Then we will teach them, Hannah said. Not with words, with actions. We will show them what humanity is made of, again and again, until they finally understand. Taiho smiled. When did you become so wise? I learned from my admiral. They stood together in silence, watching the stars. Somewhere out there, other species were looking at this system, learning about what had happened here. They were hearing stories about a young race that had been mocked by the galaxy and had answered with victory instead of revenge. The elder species had thought. Humanity was weak because they were young. They had thought humans would break because they had not yet been tested. They had thought Earth was nothing but a minor planet, full of minor creatures. They knew better now, and as humanity's fleet orbited Talus Prime, their lights steady and their crews proud, the galaxy began to understand a simple truth. Age did not determine strength. History did not determine worth. And the species that survived were not the oldest or the largest, but the ones who adapted, who prepared, and who never gave up. Humanity was here to stay, and they would never be mocked again.